All right, I'd like to welcome in Alex, Pwndidi Theologist. This is
Hello, that's me.
episode 7 of Just a Game podcast with BBZ and myself, Brick Poker. Alex, we're happy to have you on the show.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I'll just let you kind of get started about, how you got into poker, the inspiration behind it, and, what kind of was the driving factor for you to pursue this career as opposed to any other normal 9 to 5.
hmm Sure. So this was not originally the plan, as I guess is the case for 99.9% of poker players. It started about 11 years ago, I want to say, when I was invited to some home poker game by some of my friends, and I had no idea what poker even was then. They explained me the rules, and we played a bit, and I found it pretty interesting. I have always been into strategy games and card games. I used to play chess when I was young, and I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, a card game. So poker combined pretty much all of those together. So I was drawn into it from the very beginning. And then once I saw that you can actually earn money doing it as well, then it was pretty much a no-brainer because I would do the things I always liked while being able to have this as my job as well. So I would say it was a pretty quick dive in. As soon as I saw what it was about and that I could make money, I just started getting into it. And at first, I spent like 3 months maybe just studying and not playing at all because I wanted to understand like the basic theory behind it, understand the statistics, the maths, because I was always really bad at maths. So that was a bit of a process for me. And yeah, 3 months of studying and then started combining playing with studying.
So you started playing in 2013, right? Like around
Yeah,
there?
yeah, pretty much that. Yeah.
And okay. And then did you start with much of a bankroll, or like how did you like what games were you first playing when you first started playing poker? Did you start with tournaments
Oh,
or
no, not at all. I was studying in university at the time, and I was just a broke uni student like everyone. So I used to work as a DJ on the side, and then everything I earned from my DJing, I would buy like pay safe cards and invest into
okay,
poker. So I
cool.
would be playing like $1, $2 tournaments, stuff like that. Just the cheapest ones around.
Okay, so you did actually start with tournaments. You didn't start with like cash games or sit and goes or any other
Oh no,
formats?
I started with tournaments. Yeah, I started
Yeah,
with
you started with
tournaments.
tournaments. So you started off with a lot of variants. What was the first score that kind of kick-started the bankroll? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny story. It was actually before I considered myself a professional. Like a few days after that home poker game, one of these friends was like, "Hey, let's buy a 10 euro pay safe card and play some tournaments on PokerStars." I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay, whatever." And then we ended up winning some random $3 turbo for like 1.5K or something back then,
Okay.
which for me as a broke student, that was a lot of money at that point. So yeah, I guess that's what kickstarted it and what made me realize, yeah, I can make a lot of money from this game.
Okay, so you got started like right away with a nice kind of
Yeah,
piece of
exactly.
positive feedback.
Yeah,
When you were
yeah, exactly.
when you were first studying the game and trying to reinvest, were you just reinvesting into more tournaments to play bigger, or were you like subscribed or a membership to training sites? Like, what was the sort of
Mhm.
genesis for you getting better? Because obviously today you're one of the most respected players online. So how did you go from kind of getting started, playing games, DJing,
Yeah.
to
So
actually becoming good?
back then there weren't that many resources. There weren't many training site or training videos like today, where you have a plethora to choose from, and the pricing isn't even steep. Like BBC, for example, really
Mhm.
affordable, and so many different coaches, so many different topics. And back then it was mostly books, from what I recall. Especially from learning the basics, it would be like understanding just theory and pot odds and calculating like bluff to value ratio, just all on paper, which is very different from how it is today. Today, I would say it's easier to learn, but a bit harder to get the fundamentals right in your head because you understand the process better when you do it like pen and paper and just literally calculate your pot odds
Mhm.
by solving equations. So yeah, it was mostly books back then, at the beginning at least.
Okay, what books did you read?
I read like all of them. I don't remember.
What book stood
I
out?
mean,
Does anything stand out as like a major
so
book that
what I
like
remember was
contributed?
the books from like the poker celebrities weren't good, weren't very
Sure.
good. I'm sorry, but it's the truth because it was more like anecdotal evidence and stories, and not so much like actual theory and actual advice.
Sure.
So I think it was some guy. His name had something with whale in it. He was a cash game player. I don't remember exactly. Like
Okay.
Beluga Whale maybe or something like that. I don't remember. Who had
Okay.
like 3 different books, and these books I thought were really good at explaining the main concepts of poker, and went from like the basics into pretty advanced stuff. So
Oh,
this
okay.
is
Cool.
what I remember the most. So I would say, yeah, not the poker celebrity books, more so guys that understood the maths and the theory behind it.
Yeah, we had similar approaches in terms of looking for people that understood like the way the game actually worked, as opposed to yeah, like I did this and it worked because this guy did this or something
Yeah,
super very
exactly.
superficial, like something very superficial like that. Um,
Hmm.
okay, so it's interesting because I don't recall any books by that name. So like I've read a lot of poker books, so I would have to find them because now I'm interested in what they were.
I
Um,
can look it up and send you the link. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name exactly.
no, it's all good. Okay, so then
Which book do you remember?
so Applications of No Limit Hold'em by Matt Jonda, which was
Yeah.
also
Hmm.
had a foreword written by Ben Selsky, Sauce 123. That book had a pretty
Yeah.
big impact. I struggled through Will Tipton's books, which were really, really rough. We've mentioned them on the podcast before. I can't even remember what they're called right
Hmm.
now, but I know the author. I read Mathematics of Poker by Bill Chen.
I
And
remember that one too. Yeah.
yeah, that was also, I struggled through it. I mean, I said I read it, but I probably skipped like a third of it because it was just too dense. And yeah, but those types of books, I was playing sit and goes at the time, and I wasn't reading books by sit and go players because I found their like approach to No Limit like very superficial in terms of their understanding. So
Hmm.
I always gravitated towards learning from like the cash game guys myself as well. So it's interesting that we both
Yeah.
like took a lot of lessons away from those formats or that
Yeah,
format,
for sure.
and then kind of like applied it back
Yeah. Learning
to
ICM from the books was pretty fun as well. Just
yeah.
this
What
abstract concept.
was that?
I don't
Who
remember
was that?
exactly which book. I guess it was some Sklansky's
Yeah,
because it
that's
was
what I
like
would have said. Yeah,
Sklansky dollar and then ICM dollar and stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Today, much easier.
Well,
Much
yeah, way
easier
easier.
with
It's all
what
yeah,
we have.
all of the yeah. I think that today the hurdle for how good you have to be is obviously higher too, right? So, like the
Sure.
players, like the level of play is higher, so you can get better faster, but you're going to be competing against other people that can get better faster.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some gives and takes in that regard. What was the first program that you started using? Do you know? Like, did you start
The
using Sit
first
and Go
program you
Wizard
said?
or like yeah, first program Flopzilla? Like, what was the first program?
Um, I guess it was like Equilab or something, which was just like calculating the pure equity of hand versus hand. Because I think
Okay.
that's a pretty big starting point, just understanding
Hmm.
the equity of like against any two and so on.
Yeah, yeah. You started playing like 4 years. I started in 2009, like late 2009. So you started playing like
Mhm.
4 years after me. So you're using like I was doing more paper for longer. Like I was
Yeah,
on
no, for
paper.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because the tools came later. Did you ever dabble with like Card Runners EV or any of the other tools like that or no?
No, no, no. I think like once software was introduced into my arena, it was mostly PioSolver.
Okay, so
That
you
was like
started
the
straight with
new
that.
big thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
When
And
did
what? Go ahead,
no, I
Jake.
was just gonna say, when did Pio come out? Because I didn't hear about it till about 2017, I think, or is that when it came out? 2017.
I don't know. I would have to look it up.
Yeah,
Do
Yeah, I
you know?
think it was a bit earlier than that, but yeah, I'm not sure exactly when it was released.
yeah, because
Yeah,
I
me
had
neither.
a similar experience to Alex where I just didn't know where to go. You had to like look real hard to find what to study, as opposed to
Hmm.
now there's just 7 different training sites, GTO Wizard, all this stuff. So that was a bit of a struggle. I started playing in 2015, and no, my career does not look anything remotely close to yours with the 2 years difference we started. So, but that's just you're one of a kind, I'll say. Yeah, no, I'm actually curious when you said you had your big score for 1500. Did you just run off with that, or did you go broke at any point earlier in your career?
Um, so we had to split that by two. Of course, it wasn't like 500 mine; it was half of that.
Okay.
And I guess from the beginning, I was like fairly bankroll oriented. I generally don't like risk. I'm not into gambling or anything like that. So from the very beginning, after studying and realizing like bankroll management and how you need to be careful with your lines so that you don't go broke, I don't think I've ever gone actually broke from that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Nice.
of course, I was struggling financially in my day-to-day life at the beginning, but like in terms of poker bankroll, I think I was always pretty solid at handling that.
Okay, cool. And one of the questions I did want to ask is, because we
Mhm.
have so many actual poker players that listen to this podcast, what was one of the darkest moments you had in your career, and what did you do to kind of climb out of that situation? If there was like a specific, whether it was a downswing or a moment
Mhm.
in time.
Yeah, there was a period. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. So it was when Luna collapsed, the crypto thing. Because at this time I was fairly invested in that. I had a significant portion of my net worth there, and then I was going through a very big downswing. I had moved up in stake, so it was a bigger downswing. Then Luna collapsed at the same time. Then on top of that, it was the same period with the whole swap drama. So everything just came at the exact same moment, and yeah, I would say I was fairly miserable for some time there. But like things tend to do, it just fixed itself after some time.
Yeah, you never had any
Like
doubts
the
about.
negative emotions just go away. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, you never had any doubts like, is this, because I feel like 2 years ago, that's pretty late into your poker career. So there was never a thought of, maybe I do something else than poker.
Um, Not really. No, I always had thoughts about doing something on the side. So like, sure, still playing poker, but maybe not playing poker 100% and doing like 70% poker, 30% something else. But I didn't really have thoughts about quitting. No, because I think it's really hard to get the hourly I have in poker anywhere else.
Yeah.
Of course, I still like the game. Maybe not love it as much at the beginning, as is the case with every job, I guess. The more you do it, the more it becomes a routine.
Mhm.
But no, I haven't really had thoughts about quitting.
Mhm.
No.
Did you
Yeah.
did you
Go
you,
ahead.
you
Go
want
ahead, Jake.
to? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good.
Um. Yeah, because basically what I was gonna ask is, you
Hmm.
do so many other things now with creating courses. Yeah, I know you do a lot of one-on-one coaching. You do seminars for us and other
Hmm.
companies as well. Do you find now that you're in this role, you're just not playing as much poker?
Right now, I think poker comes more in seasons than before.
Right.
When I was moving up in stakes, it was more of a daily thing. I have to play every day because, well, first of all, there were more tournaments daily back then with high guarantees and very high ROIs, whereas now, like a day in June is just going to be pretty dead. So now it's more in seasons. You have the serious months, which would be like May and September and like January, where you have these big online series. Then you have the live poker seasons, which is like WSOP in the summer, and you have like Triton every few months. And then the rest of the season is content season. So it's not that I don't play as much as before because I do other things. I don't play as much because there's not much to play in the
It's
other
just
time.
because of the climate of the games where they
Yeah,
are now.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Do you also feel that's a result of how big you play now too, though? Like if you're playing Tritons, you might not find like the big 11 very, very interesting,
Yeah,
right?
no, for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure, but also plays a very big part in it. Same goes for like a daily online session. If I cannot maintain my usual average buy because there's just not enough high stakes to play in a day, then it makes more sense for me to do something else.
Yeah. 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 You and I have
Of
very
course, I don't
similar
mean to sound
approaches.
like elitist or anything like that. It's just the
No,
way
it's just
things are, right?
economics. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
economics. It's the way it works. Yeah, you and I have very similar approaches. I haven't like when I started with a $7 bankroll and then just played sit and goes and
Hmm.
just took it up. And I never went broke. Like once I understood how bankroll management works, you just if you lose money, it's like algorithmic, right? Like if you lose money, you play smaller. Like if you're it's not a
Yeah.
fixed number. It's not like I have 200 buy-ins and that's it, right? It's just a
Hmm.
you have more money, you can play bigger. You have less money, you move down.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
yeah, so it's been like a slow for me. It was like a more of a slow, steady climb.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then you
Totally
mentioned
agree.
playing every single day for a while. Do you know how long you played every single day for, or approximately, or like did you schedule time off at all, or how did you manage like the
Mhm.
very beginning in terms of the volume
Yeah, maybe every single day is a bit of an
of a
overstatement.
stretch?
Maybe like
Sure, yeah,
5 to 6 out of 7 would be more accurate. Um, but at the beginning, you're also more, I guess, enthusiastic, and you are younger, so you also don't get tired as easily, I guess, or exhausted as easily. And again, enthusiasm for poker is higher, so it's easier to play like 7-8 hours a day and then study 3-4 hours a day and study more on your off days.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think like the older we get, then the more exhausted we get, or at least for me anyway. Maybe it's not the same for everyone else, but I've definitely noticed myself getting tired a bit more easily now that I'm in my 30s.
Yeah, I think the effects of gambling also deteriorate a little bit, right? Right, when you're 23 years old and you're gambling all day long, and then you go to sleep and you wake up and you gamble all day long again. Like that also keeps you high, even if you're not like a gambling personality. Like you can't really. It's difficult to help. I don't gamble. I don't play any other games myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was just poker. Um, but like that addictive component of it has a huge role to play. I think in the ability to put in like long hours and play
Mm-hmm.
for like weeks and months, straight with no breaks. But then like after you've done it for a few years, like yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's whatever. It's just
Yeah, and it's not to say that I'm not motivated. I'm still like studying a lot and playing a lot. It's just
Mhm.
that it's harder for me now to play like 6 days a week and study every day as well.
Sure,
I did it during the previous online series because of some leaderboard thing, and I felt pretty burned out at the end after playing for like 1.5 months.
sure. Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, I would say my most active period was when I joined BitB. It was like in early 2018 or something,
Mhm.
because that was a pretty big decision for me. Having to give away half your profits for 18 months is a really big commitment.
Yep.
So I wanted to make the most out of it. So I wanted to study as much as I can, play as much as I can, prove myself, improve myself,
Mhm.
just yeah, give it my all for these 18 months
Mhm.
to at least make sure that it's worth the sacrifice of half the profits.
Cool. Why don't you walk us through how you made that decision, right? Because like I've been
Hmm.
staking people for, I mean, I've probably been staking people the longest in all of online poker, I think,
Hmm.
at this point.
Hmm.
And how did you like it gets criticized sometimes in terms of like the rationale that people might have for like why would I even do this, like why would I get staked to begin with, right? And so why don't you walk us through how you thought about getting staked, because obviously your thought process, how you make decisions,
Yeah,
gets respected by
yeah,
everybody. So how did you reach the conclusion that you should get staked?
sure. So at that point, I was playing around average buying 100, I want to say, and my results weren't as good as I thought they should be. It was after some scoop series where it went pretty badly. I think I lost like half my bankroll or something because I just ended up breaking everything.
Mhm.
And at that point, I started having some doubts about my game. So I hired a coach. I hired Graftical
Okay.
as my coach. And we did one session together where we did like a database review. And
Yep.
he spotted so many leaks I wasn't aware I was having.
Yep.
That was a pretty big wake up call that, okay, you're not as good as you think you are. You're making mistakes you don't even know you're making. Because
Hmm.
again, side note, back then it was way harder to know what you're doing wrong
Hmm.
than today. Like you can't just put it, now you can put on GTO Wizard and you see, oh, I did this wrong.
Sure.
Back then it was way harder. So it sort of opened my eyes, and then I knew Graphical was coaching for BitB, and that there were many players of Graphical's caliber or around that coaching for that team.
Hmm.
And I thought, if I improve this much in 90 minutes session, then how much can I improve if I have access to these guys every single day?
Yep.
So I filed the application, and it was more like, okay, let me send the application and we see what happens. Like I wasn't even sure yet because you have to get accepted. It was a pretty lengthy process. So anyway, I go through the process. I eventually get accepted, and then it was a really hard decision for me to give up half my profits. But I thought it's gonna end up being worth it with everything I'm gonna get from their coaching roster. That was my main deciding point, seeing their coaching roster.
Hmm.
So yeah, ever since I joined, I wanted to give literally 120%, just go through every video in the library, ask every question I have, just utilize every tool they gave me to the maximum so that my sacrifice was worth it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's sort of how I envision staking for most people, right? Like they need support to continue to take their career further. It's not just about the money, right? Like if it's just about the
Yeah.
money, like if you just run out of money, that's usually like not to say that you can't get stake for those reasons. Lots of people do, but there are usually more variables to the decision to get staked than like, oh, I
Mhm.
have like $3,000 left or something, and like I need a stake.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
usually more complicated than that. There's more inputs to the decision. Jake, do you have any questions about like how he thinks about staking or anything like that? I know that you've got a big role to play on the staking side as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it kind of already got answered because the question that I was going to ask that you pretty much answered, and maybe you might have a different answer or something else stands out. But what I find is, yeah, a lot of people underrate staking because they just put a lot of assumption that the real benefit is just the financial freedom of we pay for all the buy-ins.
Hmm.
But kind of what I paint a picture for, because we
Hmm.
obviously do a lot of the I do a lot of the interviews for players that come through our academy branch, is
Hmm.
the real benefactor of joining a stake team is you just learn about a lot of guys don't know about game selection. They don't know a lot of obviously they haven't studied a lot. Maybe there could be a long
Yeah.
list of things, obviously. But was there anything else, like, was the community of BitB really stand out to you that you didn't
Hmm.
really expect, but helped you a lot throughout the way? And you obviously
Hmm.
network too when you join these teams.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the financial aspect was really not a part of the decision at all. Because
Mm-hmm.
even when I joined BitB, I would have to play lower than I played on my own. So it wasn't like, oh, now I can play again. It was nothing. It was, if anything, a deterrent to joining. It was
Hmm.
more about all the other benefits from the coaching and, as you said, the community as well. Because being surrounded by a community of like-minded people who really want to work and succeed and improve can be very beneficial to you as well in so many different ways. Whether it's getting motivation to just being more competitive, all those things definitely help. Yeah, and BitPeace community was indeed very helpful for me. More, I think, on the competitive side because I'm a generally very competitive person. So it was more like, oh, look, this guy did that or this guy did this. Now I need to push myself to do better.
Hmm.
So it was this kind of like motivation through competition that helped me. And I understand it doesn't work like that for everyone, but for me, it definitely did.
I'm not gonna lie. I think that's like a big part of how people succeed in poker, in my opinion, at least, because it is a
Mm.
very competitive game, and I mean, it's not a sport, mental sport, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, like closer to chess, obviously, right? But you,
Mhm.
I feel like you got to be a little bit of a psychopath and a bit of a sicko to pursue this game as a career. I think.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think it's important to not have like toxic competition, if that makes sense. You shouldn't wish for the other person to fail, more so that
No,
you
yeah,
become
exactly.
better than them
Right,
in a
Yeah.
way.
exactly. There's a mutual respect for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think it's important because I see a lot of people who maybe are going through a downswing or something goes wrong in their career who become really toxic and basically anti-rail people or really hate seeing people win. And I think it's important to not go into that rabbit hole. You should be competitive, yeah, for sure. It's healthy, but in a non-toxic way. Competitive about improving yourself and not about seeing others fail.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, like you're trying to take yourself as far as you can go, but like the other guy's success is just like a yardstick, if you will, or like something to help measure yourself against and
Hmm.
push yourself towards, and all the rest of it. You also mentioned that you use or that if people want to get better, they can just use GTO Wizard now. But you also do a lot of coaching on the side. So how do you reconcile those two things? That it's like so much easier for maybe someone to get better on their own,
Hmm.
but then at the same time, you provide hourly coaching at
Hmm.
an expensive rate. I mean, it's $500 an hour, right? So that's steep. So how do you feel you reconcile those two things?
Yeah, the way I view coaching is that it is basically a shortcut. So
Mhm.
someone can learn everything on their own, sure, but it's going to take so long to get down to the main takeaways and narrow down what is important and what isn't. So that is what it is. It is a shortcut. So someone comes to me with a topic they want to work on, and I will make sure that in those 90 minutes, they get like 10 hours of work they would do on their own. I will get the main point across and, yeah, basically shorten the time they need to spend on the topic. With
Yeah.
all
So
the
it's
tools available now, yeah, basically, as you said, they can go on GTO Wizard and figure everything out on their own. Well, yeah, but that's going to take so much time to narrow through all the needless, useless information.
Yeah, you have to figure out how the spot works, right? Like they have to figure out how the spot
Yeah,
works. The
exactly.
solver, like the way that I explain it to people is the way that I reconciled it is that
Mhm.
the like GTO wizard or any solver, any output is it's like the answer at the back of a math textbook, right? Like if you go to math class and you're in school and they give you homework, you can just copy all the answers out of the back of the book. At least the textbooks that I used as a kid growing up, the answers were at the back of the book, right? But the teachers would tell you to show your work because if you just copy the answers out of the back of the
Mhm.
book, when you go to class and then they prompt you with new questions, you won't know how to answer them. You just have the answers, right? And
Yeah.
GTO Wizard is great. It gives you the answer, right? So now you have to be able to reconstruct how you go from the problem, which is like the hand that you're trying to play, to the answer, right? How do you go from point A to point B? And that's like, again, in terms
Yeah.
of speeding up that kind of thought process, how does it work? How do we go from point A, which is the poker problem, to point B, which is the solution, right? That's where the coach today can still help you
Yeah,
bridge that gap very
yeah,
efficiently.
exactly.
So
It's all about understanding like the general concept behind the hand and not the exact hand. That's what I always tell my students. Not about solving this specific hand that you had, because
mhm.
chances are you're never going to have this specific spot again in
Yeah,
your life.
exactly.
It's about understanding like why did it work like this and being able to replicate it in similar situations.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally agree. So, yeah, we have very, like I said, very similar approaches to how we think about the game, uh, and you do a lot of sessions for BBZ now, right? You're doing one session a
Mhm.
month here, but you do a lot of sessions elsewhere too, right? So you coach in a lot of different places. And how do you feel coaching? Do you feel like coaching has helped your game, like your skill set develop? Do you feel like it helps you to compete, or
Mhm.
do you feel like they're two separate things, or how do you think
Mhm.
there's a relationship between like playing and teaching?
Yeah, so it helps me in two main reasons. One is that often I also discover things on my own or for myself when I'm preparing for a topic.
Mm,
Like, for example, I noticed some huge check raise sizing on some board, and then I decided to dive deeper into it and make a session out of it. So I learned about it, and then I also shared it with others afterward. So this is one way it helps. And then the second and more common way is it helps through repetition and through revising. There are so many things in poker you need to remember, but it's very easy to start forgetting some. But
mm.
by doing coachings on them and then repeating and repeating and repeating, you also familiarize yourself more with these topics. Like, let's say c-bet sizings, for example. It can be so easy to confuse which position you bet big on which boards and so on. But the more you talk about these things and the more you repeat them, the easier it is to remember them.
Yeah, that's been my
So
experience.
yeah, I would say coaching definitely helps with playing as well. But it's dependent on each other, right? You can't. I don't think you can coach very well if you don't play at all, because you need
Sure,
to be up to date with like the exploits and the tendencies and things like that.
You hear
sure. No,
that,
you have to know
Jordan?
how the game works.
You hear that,
Yeah, I
Jordan?
hear, I hear
Yeah,
him. I
just
hear
want
him.
to
He's got his opinion. He's entitled to it.
understand.
Um,
Uh, I,
no, you're good.
I'm just bantering Jordan. That's it. I barely play for what it's worth either. I just basically the way I do my studying the same way is just coaching a lot of people and then just watching content on my own. I play like I don't know, played like 300 tournaments this year. It's not a lot. I actually did have a question about because I've been kind of thinking about this myself, doing working with a lot of people, and the question that has been brought up to me a few times is when I'm doing a database review, I
mhm,
start to consider that because we play so many different formats now, like PKOs and mystery bounties, how that really affects things. I mean, obviously, if you see somebody's like, full flop C bets like 50,
mhm.
then it's an issue, right? But more of, I guess, the pre-flop stuff, which I think it matters most. Like, how do you find your working with higher level guys through that?
Mhm. Yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think database review now is a bit less conclusive than it used to be because of this different formats. Like you limp so much now in PKOs and mystery bounties, for example. So this is going to skew your RFI stats because you just limp, and it's
Mhm.
going to increase your VPIP stats. And then also in PKOs, you exchange blinds for money, so your win rates are going to be different. So all those things influence it. Now, first for myself, I have two different databases. I have one for bounties and one for normal tournaments so that I can control things better. But obviously, when doing someone else's database review, I can't
Yep.
split everything. There's not going to be a big enough sample size. So I look for main indicators and I'm more, I guess, lenient with values. So, for example, I'm going to paint something as a leak when it's more extreme than
Yeah,
a
sure.
few years ago where it was mostly vanilla.
Have you ever thought about like I know that you specialize essentially. I mean, I know you play both, but have you ever thought about shifting more or the majority of your diet to PKOs? I feel like someone like yourself would have like a much bigger edge in PKOs than
Mhm.
like everybody else. So, have you thought about specializing and like kind of playing one format, or has that? Do you think there's just not enough volume available?
Mhm. So I agree with that, and I have thought about it. I generally play a bit higher stakes on PKOs than on normal tournaments or vanilla tournaments. But the thing is, there just, as you said, there aren't enough high stakes PKOs to make up for skipping vanillas. Because, for example, let's say I play average buying like 1,000.
Hmm.
If I was playing like $100 PKOs over like a 1,000 vanilla tournament, my EV will never catch up in PKOs.
Sure.
Even if my ROI is higher, it can never be high enough.
Yep. No, I agree with that.
So if I had the choice, I would do it. If I could play only PKOs at the same average buy-in that I play now, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I figured. I was just curious, like
Mhm.
how you thought about it. What do you think about someone who's got like a $50 ABI? Do you think that that's like a viable path for someone to pursue? Is to pursue like a PKO only diet? Because I would have.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, it wasn't a possibility, when we came up. But I do think that if you play like a low to mid stake schedule, it's
Mhm.
probably more feasible.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes sense for sure. But one thing to keep in mind is that PKOs are generally more intensive. They require more focus because you have so many more things to look out for, like stacks on the table, stage of the tournament, bounty
Mhm.
size, a lot more things. So your table count will have to be a bit lower if you play only PKOs or more PKOs than vanillas. So you're gonna sacrifice some EV from playing fewer tournaments. So I
Yeah,
think
that's
there's a line somewhere.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just think that generally speaking, like specializing makes sense economically
Yeah,
for
I
most.
agree. I agree for
Yeah,
sure.
and it's like really hard for most people probably to like split if they're going to like 12 table and they have like 6 vanillas and 6 PKOs, and they're not that good at PKOs. It's probably, and they're not that good at vanillas. It's probably better to choose one of the two formats at least initially.
Sure, sure,
Um,
and play like 10 PKO tables only. And if you play a
sure.
few lower, it's fine. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. Cool.
What do you think about
Uh,
mystery bounties?
Um, okay. I used to really dislike them until 2 days ago. Since then, I love them.
I was gonna
They're the
say
did,
I
best.
did you win
saw.
one?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, you could say.
Yeah, I played the Venom and I pulled the second biggest bounty for like 150k or something.
Oh.
So yeah, mystery bounties are the best. Every tournament should be a mystery bounty from now until forever. Uh, no, on a serious note, I really don't like the format. I think once mystery bounties kick in, it's just pretty annoying to have to play all in with like any two cards all the time for infinite amount of blinds,
Mhm.
and it's just not very fun. I don't think. I know recreationals are attracted to them because of the opportunity to win big prizes before the
Sure.
final table. But for me, even outside of the EV perspective, it's just not a fun format.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in the Venom, you had the value of the bounty being worth 40 big blinds, 40.
Yeah.
So then you had a short stack goal in for like 10 big blinds, and
Mhm.
you literally have to go all in with any two cards, like 7 deuce off, just go 100 big blinds all in and hope no one else behind calls. This is just
Sure.
not a fun way to play poker. Playing three-way all in with Jack 3 off is just,
Oh
Yeah,
man, yeah.
sure. Yeah, I mean the
it's
right
just
way
not
to
fun.
play is just to like just basically punt, and it becomes like just like a big
To
like
gamble.
gamble fest, and
Yeah.
it's just the skill part of
Yeah.
it. I mean, obviously the skill part is still knowing what to do, and your opponent's not knowing what to do. It's you knowing to stack off a 7-2 off
Yeah,
and they don't.
100%,
Yeah,
100%. And as I said, it's just not very fun for me, like this way of playing.
yeah, yeah.
Especially the
I
higher the stakes, the less fun it is, I think.
hmm Do you have any like ambitions left in the game? Like, is there anything that you really want to accomplish? Are there any tournaments that you really want to win, or um, you're
Mhm.
surrounded by poker businesses. I know you work with a lot of them. Like any ambitions in that direction, or what's next for you at this point?
Mhm.
Kind of done everything in play. Like you've done a lot in terms of playing. So
Yeah, in terms of winning a specific tournament, not really, because I understand that winning tournaments isn't really down to me. It's down to variance
yeah,
for the most part. Like I can't say,
yeah,
oh, my ambition is to win the main event. Chances are that will never ever happen, no
sure,
matter how good I get at the game. So my goals are more in terms of my skill set. And the thing is, we have so many tools to analyze our game now that it's so easy to detect mistakes. And I still have so many things to improve on. I make so many mistakes every time I play that my main goal is to just get better and better and better until I don't make as many mistakes anymore. I think just has to do with my performance, not with winning a specific tournament.
yeah. So your goals are strictly speaking like very very heavily performance related. So
Yeah,
you're like
yeah,
still
100%.
ruthlessly competitive because that's exactly how you're supposed to be. If you're
Yeah,
ruthlessly competitive, that's how it works. It's all about the
yeah,
process. Nothing else matters.
yeah,
Um,
100%.
what do you
100%.
do? What are you doing it for? Like, do you have any financial goals? Or is it just that you mentioned that the
Hmm.
allure of the game has wavered, obviously, which is normal, right? If you've been playing for
Hmm.
11 years, and some fraction of those years where you were playing every single day or close to it,
Hmm.
you're not going to be like getting some super huge rush of like, yeah, man, I'm going to play poker today. So what's the motivation? Like, that keeps you at this point like kind of
Hmm.
moving forward and keeps the drive?
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think in the past, I used to have very money-oriented goals,
Mhm.
but I've been fortunate enough to reach them, and it doesn't make sense for me to do something outside of poker right now because I'm still somewhat enjoying it. My hourly is still gonna be way higher here than starting anything new.
Mhm.
So I think it's just like keep on going, and then when I stop having fun, when I stop enjoying it, then I can look into doing something else or retiring or something like that. So I don't have like a strict monetary goal right now. It's more like keep on going, and then when I don't feel like going anymore, I will look into alternatives.
Yeah, you know that this is the maximum opportunity cost. Nothing comes close to it. So like you're going to stay here and just
Yeah,
make
yeah,
money.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I can relate to that too. Jake, what's up, dude?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, I guess kind of answers the question because I was gonna say, do you have any interests outside of poker, like hobbies that you do? Because I always find with a lot of people that are in poker, if they go outside of poker, it's usually related to one of the hobbies that they might have.
Hmm. Yeah, so I really enjoy traveling. So poker works really well with that because you get to go to new places to play some stops. Like for example, recently Triton went to Korea, which is a very interesting place to visit. I wouldn't have visited this place if it wasn't for poker, so that worked out really well. And then also I enjoy clubbing a lot,
Former
and
DJ makes sense.
yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah,
Makes sense. And I also play the occasional video game. I used to play more back in the day. Now I don't have as much time. But yeah, I would say these are like my main three hobbies: traveling, clubbing, and then video games.
right. Makes sense.
Any
Um,
countries that are left that you really want that you actually do want to go to?
Hmm, not really. I mean, there's not one place where I'm like, oh, I really want to visit this place because I would
You
have
just go.
visited. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I still haven't been to a lot of countries that I want to go to one day, but I don't have a specific place that I really want to go to. I would say maybe Canada for now.
Oh, okay. Well, you come over here. I'll say hello. We'll hang out. We'll get some dinner.
Yeah.
why? No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
It's nice in the summer. You just
It's
have to come in the summer.
it's good. Me and Jordan live on opposite sides of Canada. I'm in Toronto. He's in Vancouver.
Yeah, my
Central
part's
It's
Canada is
nice.
summer. I want to
beautiful.
come in the winter.
Yeah, the winter sucks, but
Oh, I really like cold. I really like the cold
Oh,
weather.
okay. If you really like cold, this is the place to be, bro.
yeah, this is the place to be. Go Central
You should go hang
Canada.
out with him then. Go hang out with
Yeah,
him because his he gets really cold. Mine gets like wet and like dreary. Mine's like UK weather in the winter
Hmm.
time. It's not
Hmm.
really cold here. Um, we don't
That
live in
sounds
like
great.
we don't live like igloos like he does. So
no, I don't live
uh,
in a. I'm like borderline New York. I find where I live. But
yeah.
Hmm.
Central Canada is beautiful. I've recommended people who said they wanted to go to Canada. I just said go to Central Canada because if you're into nature at least, yeah, it's a good spot. But no, cool. There was the one question I did want to ask. I know we spoke a lot about creating courses and doing all this one-on-one coaching. Was there like an
Hmm.
initial passion to try something new within poker in that regard and to help others, or was it more of just an economical decision? I mean, I get most of the time these are, but was there an initial attraction to I want to create a
Hmm.
piece of content for somebody?
Hmm. So the first reason I went to coaching, as you said, was financial, mostly because it's like passive income with no risk, no variance,
Mm-hmm.
which is always really good when you play tournaments to just have a passive source of income. But then also, I mentioned that my first session with Graphical was really eye-opening and really groundbreaking for me. So I wanted to provide that experience, hopefully, to other people as well, for them to have a session with me and be like, "Oh wow, I have a lot of things to improve on. I have to work on my game and get better. I'm not just being unlucky." So this feeling I got was, I think, really important for my career and for my success. So yeah, I hope that I'm able to transfer that to others as well.
Yeah. You ever feel like you're gonna dabble in the streaming streets or anything like that, or not so
I
much?
have actually thought about it quite a bit, but I think the problem with that is that it becomes a career on its own, and it's really hard to play very high stakes and stream at the same time. Because, first of all, streaming requires attention. You have to read the chat, talk to the chat, and this will take attention away from the tables. and then also maybe giving away a bit too much while you're playing, like maybe some exploits you're making or some tendencies on other people that you know of. And I don't think you really want to give that away when you play very high stakes.
That's interesting because I was gonna say, do you think people might already have that information on you? Because, or is that a feeling you get sometimes? Because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I might have heard it somewhere that, I don't want to drop a name or anything, but I heard somewhere
Mhm.
that someone said they were pretty certain that this information kind of got leaked, and a lot of data farmers had this type of information on a lot of high stake regs.
No, that is true. But first of all, the way I play changes over time. Like the exploits I make or the adjustments I make change. Also, I improve. So if I was doing something wrong last year, doesn't mean I'm still doing it wrong.
Right.
And then also, they don't know my reads on people. Like, let's say I'm playing against a guy and he jumps river, and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy never bluffs. I'm just not gonna call here and fold a very good bluff catcher. If he was watching the stream and he hears that, then he can definitely take advantage of that in the future, right?
Yeah.
And I'm also just going into this mind game then of, oh, the next guy, this guy jumped river. Did he hear my thoughts on the stream or not? And it just creates this dynamic which is gonna hurt my V bottom line. And at the stage I'm at where I'm trying to compete at the highest stakes, I don't think the trade-off is worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to have a lot of upside on the other side of it to like from my perspective, right? Because I was
Yeah.
competing and I decided to stream, right? But I was doing it to try to promote BBC poker, right? So I was
Mhm.
willing to stream and to take the hit to my EV because I acknowledged there was going to be a hit to my EV in exchange for what I perceived to be the upside of promoting BBC poker, right?
Yeah.
But 100% you take a hit, right? So I feel like if you don't have a direct like I feel like Giraffe, which is he's a gangster, like he's awesome, I love him. But like Giraffe streaming and he's competing at pretty high stakes, and um, I don't know if that's like the like I mean probably is because he's been so successful with it, so now it's a career, right? In a sense that
Mhm.
like he can get spot, like he can trade the viewership for currency, right? But you have to win, right? Like Graph Tuckle basically won. Like he streamed and he blew
Yeah.
up, so it worked out. But you're definitely going to take the loss with like sort of an uncertain payoff unless you have something kind of concrete that you're going to promote. So I think it feels like if you had, from my perspective, like if you had more courses, or if you had more, if you had a
Mhm.
desire to like just have more students, and that was like you intended to transition away from playing high stakes poker like 12 months from now, let's say, as much,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that
coaching a
makes
lot
a lot of
more,
sense.
yeah, right,
Mhm.
then it would make sense to do it, right? But if you
Mhm.
don't have that like kind of concrete A to B sort of, to me it seems if you're competing at high stakes, it seems a little punty. Seems a
Yeah,
little punty.
yeah. And then also there's the bottom line, but I guess I also wouldn't really enjoy being all the time with like a camera to my face because I want to, play in my underwear and I want to like pick my nose or whatever. Even though no, it is funny, but it is also a concern that you're always going to be filming yourself while
Mhm.
playing for very long hours, very long sessions,
Yeah.
and that would make me feel a bit uncomfortable, I think, or I wouldn't enjoy it. So that is also a reason why I'm
Yeah,
That's
staying
like
why I
away
had
from
to
streaming.
stop. That's why I had to stop. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that I like particularly enjoyed. Like the
Mhm.
community and stuff, like those parts of it are great, but I found it super exhausting. Like trying to compete at high stakes, and because I was playing a comparable ABI, I think you mentioned $1,000 ABI. I was around there playing like a 1K ABI, and like trying to play heads up in a 5K, and trying like not to say what I think the other guy's doing wrong while I'm playing heads up in a 5K, and then trying to beat the guy, and then trying to entertain people, like trying to do all of those
Yeah,
things, and like you have all these mixed emotions. It's
yeah,
exhausting, man.
for sure, for sure.
Um, so yeah, like I said, I did it with the understanding that like I had like a very clear objective, like raise as much awareness about what the site that I was trying to build at the time as possible. But to just be like, hey, do you want to stream just for like fun? I'd be like, no, like just
Yeah,
personally,
yeah.
um,
Yeah,
at high
but
stakes.
I've definitely considered it. Just as I said, I think it's a different kind of career path. So
Yeah,
yeah, maybe when I want to start stepping away a bit from the competitive high stakes, it makes sense. As you suggested, it's a good idea for sure.
yeah, that's the way I approached it. So, that's it for me, Jake. Do you have anything else for Alex?
I don't think so. We could probably call it there. No, you got to run soon. But no, this
Yeah, I
is
do.
a great episode, Alex. Appreciate you jumping on, and we're happy to have you on.
Yeah, I
Yeah, no,
appreciate
it
you,
was
man.
a pleasure for me as well. I'm again very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
cheers.